Welcome to this week's Treasury Career Corner podcast, where I interview Treasury professionals about their Treasury careers. Each and every week, I'll talk to treasurers about how they built their careers, where they are now, where they see both themselves and the Treasury profession going to next. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to this week's Treasury Career Corner live in Dublin. This is the 8th out of 10 I've done this year, everywhere from Vegas to New York. One of the best turnouts I've got to say here. So thank you very much for all showing up. Now, I need you all to be here in both mind and body. So, anyone got their phones on them? Fantastic. Put them away. How often do you get to see two amazing treasurers and Paul? It's all right. Here's our warm-up act, don't worry. 3 amazing treasurers and get some career advice from these guys. You don't. What you're going to get to see tonight are 3 amazing treasurers who are going to talk about their Treasury careers, talk about how they've made their progression, how they've grown their Treasury careers, and where they see the future of Treasury. And as Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. So listen in, ask some questions, and actually take advantage of talking to these treasurers. You are going to get to see them in the bar afterwards, but share some of the knowledge. A couple of people have asked me, who am I? Why am I here? I'm Mike Richards, as it says here. Exceptionally large head on this. Oh, no, sorry, before I do that, we're going to thank our sponsors. There you go, keep in order. So State Street, can you give your hands up, please? There's the lovely Jackie. She's going to assault you with a notebook unless you take one. But then David will give you some lovely chocolate to take away the bruising. Chatham Financial, where are these? That's lovely. There's Sarah. These guys are buying the drinks later as well. Be nice to them, otherwise they won't buy you a drink. Salmon Software. There you go. Tom at the back, be nice to him. You won't understand him, he's very posh English. And TIS, where we got you guys, lovely. And Gert as well over there. Thank you very much to our sponsors. There you go, who am I? My Richards run the Treasury recruitment company. I recruit you guys, moving from one seat to another seat and then send out a bill. Been doing it for 25 years. I then thought, I love talking to treasurers, even Paul. Oh, there's the rest of the team as well. So you got Katie Hardy, where are you? There you go. There's Katie. When you need a job move later on, after a couple more drinks and whatever you said to your boss or colleague, call Katie. I started talking to treasurers 20 years ago, and then I thought, I'm enjoying it so much, I'm going to record it, with their permission, of course. And it became a podcast. I thought, maybe we'll do 10 episodes. We're now 330 later. I've spoken to treasurers across the world about exactly that, their Treasury careers. And it's rather popular. 160,000 downloads, which is just incredible. 200 to 300 a week. And again, each and every week, I talk about how you treasurers have developed your careers. That then led to this live event, where these lovely people share the stage with me, and I ask them about their careers. We go through it, and these are some of the questions we're going to talk about. They get then to introduce themselves, talk about education, how qualifications. Some of you want to know about that, but you also want to know about some keys to their success. What have they done? How have they made it? Some of the decisions they made and everything else. From that as well, we'll then go to Q&A. We are then, afterwards, we got some great key takeaways. And I know that there are really good takeaways, so we could probably get to takeaways a bit earlier this evening. So I think there's some really good advice for all of you here. So first of all, I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves and talk about their careers. We've got lovely Erin Cole. Now, you have to be nice to Erin because she is slightly nervous, one of her first sessions. But we are going to start with your story about starting in laundrettes. Over to you.
For inviting me here. Pleasure to be here. My name is Erin Cole. I'm Group Treasurer at Tate and Lyle. It's a food and beverage ingredients company headquartered in the UK. I'm 37 and I've worked in corporate treasury for 13 years. So not quite as tenured as some of the prior guests on this podcast. The first time I've told my story in public, so go easy on me. I was going to take a different approach and not start with my degree and what happened when I left university. So I was 11 and I had my first experience to mentorship. The principal at the school, Mary Mitchell O'Connor, who many people in this room will remember as a former Irish government minister, she coached me to go on and win 2 scholarships to 2 very prestigious schools in Dublin. And I was 11 and I had a big decision to choose Queenscote. And posh school was never really on the cards for me, but my parents supported me all the way. That, I think, was really where the seed of ambition was planted in me. I just knew that I wanted future success, and I felt like I had to prove myself. When I go back to my early days, I actually had exposure to treasury, so cash management and FX. My parents always instilled a strong work ethic in me. So I worked since I was 14. And my first job was in the dry cleaners. And I managed the dual transition from Irish punts to euros out of my little cash register. So I had a 2 sets of notes and coins and my little calculator on the side. And that really was where my first entrance to Treasury started. And I had loads of jobs after that. I worked making breakfast rolls in the local deli, the DIY store where I learned customer service, how to mix paint, how to do a stop tape, which I think everyone should learn to do. Everyone should work in a pub with fear when they're younger.
And then how did you discover Treasury, or where did it come from?
So I went to Trinity College. I studied business and economics, graduated in 2009 when, if everyone thinks back, Ireland was not a very nice place to be looking for a job. The global financial crisis had really taken hold here. And for business grads, really the only options out there were, I never wanted to be in Kent. This is a long story. I try and keep it snappy.
Yeah.
I was really lucky to secure a place on the advisory team at PwC. They offered me the role, and as quick as they offered it to me, they took it back and paused it for a year. They gave me cash compensation. So I took that and I booked myself a one-way flight to Bangkok. And I had a great time in Southeast Asia, travelling around. The world was my oyster, just finished college. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I think that PwC role to pull back on. Fast forward 18 months and I'm back. I'd had my daughter at 23, my little girl Ezra, and I was solo parenting, a little bit lost and trying to figure out the next step. I knew it wasn't going to be the intense grad scheme in PwC with coupled with ACA study at the weekends and the evenings with the baby. It just wasn't going to be practical, especially on 24k a year. I struggled for a few months thinking what I wanted to do, and I came across corporate treasury postgrad in DCA, and that really appealed to me. It just seemed like a really practical way to learn about funding in the debt capital markets, FX risk management. So I signed up for that, and then by a stroke of luck, almost simultaneously, I was offered an internship at Getty Images by Cara Killian, mentor and lifelong friend, who Mike knows well.
Yeah.
Cara hired me at Getty, and I was so lucky to have Cara. I had the gold standard intro to Treasury. Getty was privately held at the time, so working under private equity, it was super fast paced. We went through 2 leveraged buyouts, which meant multi-billion dollar debt raises. Cara gave me the keys on the Bloomberg, and I was trading $500 million of interest rate swaps and building models. She brought me to Seattle to work. I was sat in Jonathan Klein's office, the founder, and see when he was doing the earnings calls. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. Just couldn't have asked for more. The time came where we'd set up the EMEA Treasury in Dublin. Cara was then moved to New York to head up investor relations, and I became the only finance person in the office. And Cara gave me really good advice that the one thing she was missing on her CV, looking back at that, I'm regretting taking PwC because I've immediately doubled my salary by not taking it. But actually, that's a big gap for me, not having that accounting qualification. So we knew then that the next step was going to be for me to leave Getty eventually. And I figured out that I was going to go and do the ACA through industry on what they call the flexible rate. I just needed a firm to take me in and do that. And a few months later, he contacted me. He was a role at James Hardie Building Products, seasoned finance professionals, loads of chartered accountants in the office, and it was the right environment for me to go in and get that experience. And then as well as that, I'd experience with high yield bonds and interest rate swaps and working with rating agencies. But that's what I wanted to take for them. And they were doing lots of really exciting things. So go to the high yield market for the first time, the syndicated Aussie bilateral debt into the US style revolver, lots of interesting things like that. And then once all of that was locked down, there was time for me to start moving a bit laterally. And I ended up working on a more broad finance project as well as keeping the day job going. So I went to California, worked on a HFM and consolidation tool implementation. Went to Australia and New Zealand for a manufacturing project. And one of my last projects there was spending a good bit of time on the finance integration for a big acquisition that they did in Germany, leading the finance integration work stream. And that was an amazing experience, but it was anything not at work.
Yeah, and I know that you got through that and you thought, time for some time out, which you did. Yeah, talk about that and then bring us up to date with Tate and Lyle and things.
Yeah, my time at James Hardie came to a natural conclusion. I left. It was a bit of a risk because I left with my job to go to, and I took time out backpacking around Latin America with my daughter. She was 8 at the time, and it was the best venture. It was in 2019. We went from May until she had to go back to school in September. Such a good time, and I wouldn't have come home from, we left from Costa Rica, I wouldn't have come home only for she had to go to school. Then we got to like November and I was still not back to work and there weren't many interesting opportunities coming up in Dublin. I get a call from a London recruiter and my brother had a spare room in London. I'm like, this might be something to try, and we're asking, what's your day rate? I'm like,
It's a day rate. Yeah.
I've been asked that question in my life. But that's how I started at Tate as a day rate contractor, working with Ollie Wedette. It was like to backfill a director role initially. And within a couple of weeks, I think they were being permanent role there, which I took eventually, and then was promoted pretty quickly from senior manager to director of Treasury Corporate Finance, and now group treasurer since the start of last year.
Tate and Lyle, can you just, for the audience again, people might know of or have an impression of that trading, sugar and everything else, but they really changed as a company, haven't you? Yeah.
We are transformation journey, and I was actually quite lucky that I came in at the very start of the recent big transformation piece. When I signed a contract to work there permanently, I had an NDA put in front of me because we were on the journey to look at the primary products business.
Yeah.
And that's the more commoditized business, sells ingredients like high fructose corn syrup in the US. So we sold that, all closed down 1st of April 2022. And we've now just announced an acquisition. We will hopefully be closing that in the next few months. We're going to buy CP Kelco from J.M. Huber. Really exciting stuff going on. Just syndicated about $900 million of new debt. And we'll be going into the USPP market.
So we're going to move on to Paul. Now, Paul, I know, has got a bit of a cough, would you prefer to have the microphone, or are you okay with that? Okay, cool. Paul, over to you, Paul Hussey.
Thank you. Could I fall asleep? Apologies. It's 2 flights from Doha, to and from Doha in the last couple of days to come here today. I've just got to talk briefly about the career. I'm not going to afford it, the outside of it. But my background is social bank buying. I was a fund manager for 8 years. I worked at this. Then I went back into banking, went into Treasury, back into bank, and back into Treasury. The journey effectively is all encompassing to understand. I think if I hire people, they have to have a banking background. And it's also about the people that work with. I'm not particularly clever, I'm not particularly good, but what to do is about spins. And that's the most important thing. It's working with partnership. Treasury is simple. It's really simple. It's about cash. We can make it as sexy and super detailed as we want, but it's all about cash. Like the last few years, I've been working in this my company into Saudi Aramco, at the time the largest company in the world. Now I'm the largest LNG producing company in the world. But it's all about cash. It's actually understanding where our cash is, the utilization of our cash. If we do a bond issuance or do anything difficult, it's not difficult. It's actually working as a team to understand and actually get the thing going. In short, for me, working in Doha, it's working with the people. The only reason I've got to this level is because as a team, we succeed, and as a team, we fail. And it's very fun. One of the guys that works at the Doha time beforehand about Treasury. What is Treasury? It's endlessly innovative. It's massively great. And I think that's something I found. It's just actually understanding the risk, the cash, and the people that's behind it. So for me, that's Treasury.
We will also dive into these guys and their education as well, and some other things, elements of how they develop their careers. We'll come back to some of those. Eva, I'll pass it across to you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Eva Mernan, and I'm SVP Treasury at Smurfit Westrock. Previously, Group Treasurer at Smurfit Capital. We very recently did a large merger with one of our competitors to make us the biggest listed paper packaging company in the world. We're now listed on the New York Stock Exchange, so primary listing, S&P 500 eligible, and also their standard listing in London. I think one thing that I've in common with, I think, the guys up in this stage and some people that we were chatting to earlier is I've yet to meet a treasurer that didn't fall into Treasury, and I was one of those people, and again came from a banking background. When I left university, a little bit before you, Erin, so I'm not going to say when, But jobs were not easy to come by in Ireland either. And I remember saying to my mom, the one thing I do not want to do is go into banking. That's the one thing I do not want to do. And then I spent probably the next 10 years in banking. And I worked initially, and this will age me, with Bankers Trust for the so back office over to the IFSC. Then I worked in Bank of Ireland for a while. I moved to London and worked with Montague Private Equity. They were HSBC Private Equity when I joined them. And during that time, I was doing my accounting exams. My qualification from university was European Studies from UL, and then I did a grad dip in Applied Economics. I had to say probably the most useful qualification for me, and the one that got me into Treasury, was accounting, because I decided to move back from London, and I met, and especially if you were with Dansby, you probably knew them, Paul Regan and Brendan Glynn in Smurfit Kappa were the two people who interviewed me. And I'd come over and I'd done a couple of banking interviews, and then I was meeting these guys in Smurfit. And I was sitting there thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I've never worked in a corporate. Should I just leave? Was this going to be really embarrassing? But we got on really well. And I think even Aaron talking about mentorship and everyone talking about teams, you learn so much when you work with people like that. Paul and Brendan were legends, I think, in corporate treasury in Dublin. Paul was 30 years group treasurer. Brendan similarly is the assistant treasurer. They were such a great duo. And indeed, when I took over, what made my life very easy is I inherited a fantastic balance sheet from them. Balance sheet I'm inheriting now is a little bit more challenging, but at least I learned from the best in terms of how to work a balance sheet and how to create a good balance sheet. I think that's really how I got into it, from going to, I'm never working in banking, I think it must be terribly boring, to doing a roundabout into Treasury. And I started off as Treasury accountant with them, and I did that for about 7 years, and then became the head of Treasury accounting. Before then, when Brent retired, I took over as assistant treasurer, and then when Paul retired, I took over as group treasurer. And then, luckily, they decided on me for SVP Treasury when we came together with Westrock.
All three of you, as we've got up on here, had exposure. You've got accounting there, and you've done the same as well. And Paul, you then have teams as well. What advice, because we've got a full mixed audience here. So we've got some who are thinking about studying or partway through. Are you saying everyone needs to be an accountant? Does everyone need to go and do Treasury exams? Or what are your thoughts on, and it's changed and it's evolved since you guys, we'll start with Erin and then move across, and then I'll actually pass the baton when we go to some other questions. But Erin, what are your thoughts as you've got a team, you've got teams, we were actually talking about this last week, Poland, and where can they get education? How do you coach them?
Education trumps experience, but it helps in case prospective employers up and convert when they're going to your CV. It shows that you've got commitment, dedication, that you're serious about the career. And I saw a thing on Instagram there yesterday, which you didn't show on my phone. I felt like it was writing, but it said, if you're lost, the answer is education. If you're educating, the answer is execution. And if you're executing, the answer is consistency. I thought that was very good because everyone's on a different path, right? I went back into the accounting and felt like I didn't want to be forcing that. Why didn't I just take the PwC job on in this 23 and get it out of the way? But that doesn't have to be for it.
Yeah, because no one could, but also no one could take it away. And that's one of the things when I've talked to employers as well, and they're saying, although they sometimes do get a bit stuck, because they're saying, we're encouraging this, but I really like this person, but they don't have the qualifications. What do I do? And I know that, Paul, you and I have talked about things like that in the past.
I agree with Aaron. Basically, it's all about experience.
I agree to a certain extent, and I disagree to a certain extent. I think, would I be where I am today without having an accountancy qualification? I probably wouldn't have really got in the door if I hadn't had it. Then you have to use it, though. It's performance. It's not enough to have the education. You actually have to apply the education. Again, would I have become group treasurer without having done ACT exams? I think they gave me a technical knowledge on different instruments that definitely gave me a bit of an edge compared to perhaps people who haven't had the interest. And some of it may have been that I was just really interested in it, very passionate about it. My husband thinks I'm the biggest nerd in the world. I actually really love Tate. And he also works with Treasury, and he goes, what's wrong with speaker? But he enjoys it, but I actually really love it, which is why I've done that. So I think it definitely gives people the edge, but I don't think education has to be formal. I think there's a whole host of information out there, podcasts. You can just put on your radio, listen to a podcast. In 10 minutes, the FT News briefing gives you pretty much in a nutshell what's happening today. There are all these political podcasts, different business podcasts. All of that is the same type of education. So you've actually, I think, more access to knowledge, the type of things that you maybe had to go to a university to do before. There's a lot more at our fingertips now. But I do think, I agree, it's the application of it is what comes down, because people mightn't, for your guy with geography, is his primary degree. He probably is educating himself, though, all the time on Treasury because he's interested in Treasury. And it doesn't have to be a formal thing. I think it definitely gives you the edge. It definitely probably gives you that foot in the door. And I think that is still the case. I don't know if it will always be the case because, you say, it's rapidly changing. But it probably, I would feel, would I be where I am now if I hadn't done continuous education? Probably not. So I do think it certainly helped me.
Oh, God.
What are you going to hire for in 5 years? What's the person you're going to hire?
I think it's going to be either of two things, really. It's either someone who's a Treasury expert, but then, again, we were having the conversation before because we're going to get onto IT, AI and everything else and the rise of that, the Treasury. But everyone's saying, oh, our treasurers like yourselves are all going to be replaced by robots. I certainly hope not, because otherwise I'm out of a job. You can just go and create a robot and that's it, you're done. It's not that. Treasurers have always embraced technology, always used it to your advantage and everything else. And I think it's actually helping you get more done with less. As AI is brought in, and it's not just AI, Erin and I were talking about this, it's about the use of data. You guys are great translators. You are talking to, you've got big sets of data. I did one of my sessions earlier this year in New York with Dana Laidhold, the global treasurer of NASDAQ. And they now use machine learning to scrape their daily exposures for NASDAQ. And they keep it controlled and everything else. But what was taking one team member and a couple of team members probably a week to do, now they do in seconds, nanoseconds. And it actually makes their jobs more interesting. That's one of the key things. I think that's being lost in a lot of the stuff that you see in the press and everything else. AI is making your jobs as treasurers easier. It's elevating as well. I think there is going to be an issue that more junior staff, you are going to maybe look for people from a data science background or something like that. I've talked to a couple of US clients in particular. One guy, he had a couple of his son's friends and they were saying, oh, I'm going to go and study economics. He went, don't do economics as a major. Do a split major with that computer science. And the guy's, oh, really? I'm not really. He said, just use it for yourself sort of thing. And I think that's actually one of the questions. We'll come back to the AI bit. What I wanted to get from yourselves, looking back over your careers now, Paul, you've moved internationally. Erin, you've done different moves with different companies. I just wanted to reflect on maybe some of the choices you've made. As you say, what's been key to your success? For you, Paul, you've made moves across the world and just got up and got on the plane sort of thing. As you said, you've done 3 back-to-back flights to be here. That's why I'm having to buy them drinks later. But that aside, you've been there and you've made different choices between you. Paul, we'll start with yourself and then come across, then come back to Erin. What would you say, Paul, with yourself?
It's very simple. CFO. What does he want? What does he want on Treasury? I think so that the list where on the guys you've told says that to me. Treasury is not the traffic in a big share. And what I mean by that is that, again, if you look at the crises we've gone through, it's only when the CFO wakes up and goes, here's my cash, what am I going to do? And I think we need to get better at actually selling the story as regards what a treasurer actually does. What is the main premise? Is to protect the underlying asset. And I'm not talking about oil wells, or I'm not talking about LNG trash that I work on. I'm talking about where the cash is, what we do with the cash, how we utilize the cash. Again, it goes back to, it's very simple. Treasury is very simple. We can make it as complex as we want. But the CFO, and I've worked in a lot of companies, I've worked for some very good CFOs. Yeah. And it comes down to the top, because that the treasurer is only as good as his boss or her boss.
And that's actually come out a little bit on the podcast as well. Some people have asked me, what have I observed from some of the more successful treasurers? And I've said, it's not just about management downwards, it's also about management upwards, making your boss look good sort of thing. Now, you've been very successful. Is that one of the keys to your success, managing upward as well?
I'm not sure. I've always been great at managing upwards. And indeed, I've made as many mistakes as and luck plays a little role in everybody's career success. Luck can be shining on you at certain times and at the right times. One thing I would say is probably, if I look back at the turning point in my career, because I had always, and I think it's a little trap that a lot of us fall into, if I work really hard and I'm diligent, people are going to notice, they're going to tap me on the shoulder and they're going to go, "You're great, here you go, I'm going to offer you everything." And it doesn't quite happen like that. I think you have to be a good performer, that's a given. But someone said to me one time, and I thought it was very true, she said, performance plus perception equals promotion. Because you don't have to just be good. You have to have, people need to realise you're good. And a turning point for me was, it was a good few years ago now, and our technical accounting manager, who was a fantastic mentor to me, Paul McFeely, who actually wasn't, yes, it wasn't a qualified accountant, was probably the best accountant I ever knew. His daughter's in service as well. He was, yeah, and his daughter still is. So he was a fantastic mentor for me. And we got chatting about derivatives. And as I said, I am a complete nerd when it comes to this stuff. And I love all things, chatting about all of these things. And Paul said to me, "I think you should do a presentation on Miss Emer, because it seems to be quite complex, but you're making it really simple." And as you say, it is actually really simple. People get a bit frightened. So anyway, I said I would do it. And I was in the canteen one day, and our CFO, Ian Furley at the time, came up behind me and he said, "Emer, I hear you're doing a presentation on derivatives. It's one thing I always think I'd like to know more about, so I'm going to be there." And I will never forget, my stomach hit my heels. I never felt more nervous, but he was there. And when the head of Treasury accounting role came up, I was given that tap on the shoulder to go for it, but it probably wouldn't have happened had people not seen me at the derivatives presentations. There's luck, there's taking a bit of opportunity, and there's also having great people. And our CFO, again, Ken Bowles, again, a fantastic mentor, has come through the organisation, worked in many different roles, and he trusts his people. He trusts that his people are good and do their job well. And I think with every company having gone through so many different crises, the world is almost crisis after crisis. I do think Treasury has raised, I think, itself in terms of profile with the C-suite, with the board of directors, for exactly what you're saying. Where is our cash? Do we have enough cash? Can we get cash? All of these things. And when they can trust that you have the expertise in this and that they know that's all safeguarded and future liquidity is safeguarded, it goes a very long way to building trust. But as you say, I think it's a combination of things. But if I look overall, it all stems back to that one conversation that I had with Paul McFeely that I think really did just really make a big difference to my career.
Thanks so much there. You have to read hard work and putting your hands up for doing that for them to taking on the projects that move beyond. It just adds strings to your bow. But also being a little bit entrepreneurial about for your treasurers. We're risk managers, we're risk averse, and a lot of us are quite conservative. Knowing when to take calculated risks with your own career can be very uncomfortable, but I think that's really important to do as well.
So we've got some great takeaways and actually a bit more career advice actually from the panel shortly. I'm going to do that because I'm going to finish on time. So I'll go into some of the Q&A. Yeah, we'll talk about hybrid working. Then we'll come back to Erin and then Paul.
We have a hybrid system inside. It's the core days, probably 3 days a week, not specific days. It's any 3 days, with then some specific exceptions. We do value the fact that people are in there. I think we might be unusual though as well, because we're the global head office, so the CFO is in the building, the CEO is often in the building if he's not travelling. So you've all the senior management really in that building, and that's where you do get face time. We have a canteen where everyone sits down together, has lunch together. No one, it's not like little groups go to their own tables. So you could be sitting with the CFO. I don't think you lose that if you're always working from home. But I think we were bringing in flexibility before COVID happened, and then it accelerated, I think, with COVID. So what we find works very well is that, because those quick conversations that you can have, something where, you know, it's a 2-minute conversation, if you pop your head into someone's office, but you have to go out of your way to make a Teams call to bring people into it. Sometimes you lose that with complete remote working, it's trying to find that balance, though, of making sure that it is flexible enough for people, that it is flexible, because I think the days of people being just tied to the desk 9 to 5, and I think that you want to get away from that. But what you want is that when people are in the office, they are getting the benefit, especially people who are younger, who are training, who just, especially in an open plan treasury operations, where people just absorb things just by virtue of being there. I think you can use that at home, but it's trying to make sure that we don't go back to the sort of people have to be present just for the sake of being present, but rather that you try to get the best of both worlds. And I think it's still evolving. I think it's still evolving as a work in progress for people, but it's something we value. Now we have bigger challenges because we now have, I have an Atlanta Treasury team, a Geneva Treasury team, so they're not all going to be in the building. And it is making sure that they get enough face time and even face-to-face time with me. So it's more travel involved for me, but I think it's important that people do get the feeling that they're not, if I'm working from home, am I just being forgotten about? I think it's trying to make sure, but it does take a lot more effort.
Yeah. I did a session last year, actually, at New York Cash Exchange, and there was exactly that point with one of the treasurers, Steve Rosenthal, Broader. And he, as they all came back into the office, he loved being back in the office. He said, it's great, I get more, I've got less distractions. Yeah, the really nice home office. He said, it's just great. Like, pop up, make me lunch. Actually, going to work was great. But he actually then discovered himself that he was going all the way, training into 2 hours. And then a couple of times he'd come out for lunch, saying, hi guys, and then be straight back in his office. And actually, he realised, and they started to do this sort of 360 feedback with the team, and they said, it's great you're here, but we never see you.
Yeah.
And you're actually in your office. And they're like, what they did is that, I can't remember the exact title, but it's actually planned in team or something like that. And basically what he was talking about is getting the team to come in those 2 or 3 days, actually planning activities together and having water cooler moments, having time together, not just coming in and closing the door. Otherwise, he said, might as well just stay at home.
I agree. I'm not a fan of closed doors. Sometimes you need to close the door if you're working on something particular, you're making a call. And I see Andrea there in the audience is part of my team, but we very much have an open door policy. And that is the CFO's door is always open. It's not just, I have my door open, but other people don't. It is very much because, as you say, if I'm sitting there with the door closed, no one gets a chance, or they feel they can't come and chat about something or talk to you about something. It's a bit pointless. There isn't proper teamwork there.
And he wasn't doing it in a deliberate way to close the door and things. He just discovered himself doing this. And it was great when his other senior colleagues and the couple of guys that worked for him say, actually, we want to talk to you more. He's like, really? Yeah, but we don't feel we can because you're knee deep in this. And actually, whoa, and he came back from that. And actually now, when they do this, they said, we need to see you with the diary. And it was not like, we need to see you in the diary. It was, hang on, work together. On Wednesdays, they get together and they have some activities they plan. If they're doing a big project, yeah, some weeks, if they've got something happening, they might be in 5 days that week. The following week, say, guys, I'll see you in a week. They don't have to do it. They're not rigid with it. But that's one of the things they've planned. Erin, what about yourself? Because you've got an interesting one because you have a mixed team, as it were, location-wise.
I'm pretty much the remote treasurer because I live and work remotely in Ireland and our head office is in London. 2 people in London, 1 in China, 3 in Brazil, and then a 10-person back office, including some trainees in Poland. So a couple of devolved teams there. And we do have to be very mindful about those anchor days. And it does mean a bit more travel for me, but I also get the most out of those days when I am in the office. My banks are also in London as well, so it can be quite pressured to fit everyone in, but it works. And our office is open plan, so CFO, CEO, they're all walking around, sitting in the open, which is great. Complete exposure to everybody. The board of director can be there, but if you need an distracting then at time.
I'd like to give a special thanks to Flywire, our fantastic sponsors. If ever you've wondered whether there's a way to ease your international transaction hassles, they're the guys to talk to. If you follow the link in our show notes, you can see me talking to my mate, Greg Levin, their Senior VP of Sales. I get Greg to explain who Flywire are, how they can help you and your treasury team with your cross-border payment headaches. Follow the link in today's show notes. Let's get back on with the show.
Now, we I spoke to the panelists before, and I won't do it as a question to the audience, AI, data, and we touched on that a little bit, and I talked about how that's going to be a rising thing. But we were also, Erin and I were talking about it before, and then, Paul, you've done SAP, you've done all that, and then we'll come to you. But I'll go with my panelists now, just to put it to you, the future of Treasury, and it doesn't have to be data, it doesn't have to be AI. Eurofinance, every other session is that, really. But what are your experiences? Because you were just talking about that it's quite different for you guys as well.
I think we're probably going to be a slower adopter as a business of things like AI. We are doing experiments here and there, but from the finance perspective, all it takes is a great big acquisition like we're about to close in a couple of months to completely shake everything up. We've got completely different data structures to integrate. But I think it just boils down to simplicity, understanding your processes, standardizing them, and then using things like data lakes to try to do what you can to put those extractives of data in. That's really it. It's just getting back to the basics. It's like a web because you've got your ERP, which is like the center of the organization, but then you've got suppliers and customers, and there's all sorts of information coming in and out of your network all the time. So it's not just what's going on in your organization that determines how you analyze your data. There's just so much.
Yeah. We will have room for a couple more questions if we do need it ourselves. What are you foreseeing?
Yeah, I think we're very integrated in terms of our systems, in terms of AI. I think it's there in the background. Sometimes, but what my experience of it, sometimes I get an email and for some reason there's a line that goes in. It's never the line I would have written, but there's obviously some algorithm there in the background that's trying to decide what I'm actually... It says something like, thanks very much for that. I'm like, that's not what I was going to actually type. But look, I think there's no doubt. Look, it moves very quickly. Computerization in itself has moved very quickly. When I was growing up, I was in college before I was ever really on a computer. My 15-year-old now, he built his first computer at 12. And when I asked him about it, he just said, oh, it's all on YouTube now. So it's like his knowledge with computers in that generation is so far ahead of mine. So if AI is coming from me, I think I'll probably end up rolling over because I would not see myself as techie. I think when it comes to strategy, when I think it comes to explaining strategy to people, I think you still need the human being. I think you still need the person who knows, is this a case of rubbish in and rubbish out? So I do think that's still needed. I think the opportunity, is for people who are like Treasury analysts, I think they'll still be there, but their role will probably be different. A lot of their processes will be automated. Just so much more is automated now than when I started working. It's a completely different world, but they make things more efficient and make work more interesting for people, I think, overall. But it's hard to tell right now just because it is changing so quickly. If you see me in a few years' time, you can point and go, I told you to be out of a job. But I think people will always want people with people skills. I think people will always want to deal with people. I do think that if someone's very happy with a very process-driven role and not wanting to change, if you like, and go into more value add, I think that is going to get tougher, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. But I think things will be just different. I think where it'll take certain roles, it'll probably open up other opportunities. And some of that will be in the users themselves. And some of it will be where people no longer have to spend time manually analysing some data without the machine, but actually it'll be done and it'll give them proper information. But I think from my point of view, I always want the person there that I feel has the skill set to tell me, does this actually make sense? Is this?
And it's an interesting one as well. 6 years ago when I started the podcast, I thought I was a pretty good recruiter. I was all right. But the thing was, what I discovered from talking to over 300 treasurers is actually I got to know really what you guys do. And actually then was talking to some very successful treasurers and some treasurers that were okay. And actually what I was discovering with the most successful treasurers, that 20 years ago when I first started in Treasury, had let itself be pushed into a corner. A bit ivory towered, you got a bit of a pay rise, you're well paid for being a treasurer. But actually, Treasury has spent the past 20 years trying to battle its way back out and now be part of the business. And the treasurers that I've been seeing that have been more successful, that I've talked to, really go out to the business. They're getting their treasury analysts and saying, treasury analyst now, you talk about it not having one. Well, so your treasury analyst isn't just sitting there crunching the numbers. your actual analyst can go out and become FP&A and help those guys and get to know them, have a coffee with different parts of it, and actually integrate with the teams, because their next move might not be within Treasury. Treasury has been a very specialist silo, and actually the least silos. And that's the other thing I think with treasurers, that those that are able to translate this, manage upwards, talk to their CFO, the better you can talk to your CFO and present that picture, as you said earlier, the more successful you'll be, which actually isn't sometimes a natural skill set for some treasurers. And I think they've really struggled, but it's still a great place to be within Treasury. Now, we've got time for one question potentially, or we'll go to takeaways. Anyway, we'll let David have one question. As long as it's a good question, David. Otherwise, the ferryman does close at 12.
What time's the ferryman close, actually? But just regarding ambition, just interested in how much of a stress would it be for group treasurer as CFO?
Who's going to take that one first?
I think it's less of a stretch now than it used to be in the past. I think it's definitely there. I report directly into our CFO, but I talk to our CEO and I present to our board. There was a time, I think, where, as you say, Treasury was very silent. People really, you were away there managing the cash somewhere, but no one really knew maybe who you were or what you were doing. I think we're an unusual company because our CEO and CFO are so interested in Treasury, are interested in the risk management, and our board is as well. I've never been one to have a big plan. The CFO that we have, I think he's just absolutely incredible. I think he's really a phenomenal CFO, and it's always daunting to fill big boots if you were to go down that route. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, and who knows in the future.
Erin, any thoughts?
Oh, I think the gap is narrowing, and there's so many really strong treasurers out there. Like you look at Andy Henley's journey at Tesco. He went into the treasurer role without a real treasury background and is very much, I think, on a path to CFO.
And I've seen it myself that it never used to be a thing that happened. And in the 6 years, again, and over the 25 plus years, I've seen, and I've re-interviewed now some of the treasurers I had on the podcast. There was a great guy, Sam, who he was the treasurer for Rockefeller Group. He's now the treasurer, now the CFO, property management, a property company in New York. And he and I caught up about what was the difference. And he said, I knew all this stuff, but I didn't know some of this stuff. And he did it very effectively, but it was a really interesting catch-up call. I've done it with a couple of others. When I first started the podcast 6 years ago, there weren't any treasurers moving to CFO. Now it's becoming more rather than the unusual, oh, wow, how did they do it? So we try and keep to time because there are free drinks. Thank you very much, sponsors. But we've got some great takeaways from the panellists here. Erin, maybe pick out just a couple of yours if you want. I love the Paratiny games, but do you want to explain that to the audience a little bit as well?
Sure. So for anyone listening to the podcast and not watching the video, I've got two cringy little images on my slide here. So the first one is the power of marginal gains or tiny gains, as James Clear says. So a former CEO at James Hardie Building Products, where I worked, introduced me to this concept that if we can improve 1% every day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better. And I thought that was great, but then I realised you probably plagiarised that from somewhere else. I guess my message is have a vision. The other image that I've got on the screen is my 30th birthday cake that my accounting mentor at James Hardie organised for me. And the cake is the front cover of the Treasurer magazine with my head eventually just went out to the body. And I think that was it. Even though I'd always worked in corporate treasury, it was only then when I was 30 that yeah, I can do that job. And actually, that is the thing I want to go for. The 5 years later, I managed to get myself there. But that was really the moment where the penny dropped. Thanks, Carol, if you're listening. But my message here is that I think have a vision and then use that continuous improvement to make sure that you get yourself there, set small actionable goals, make it happen.
And just on that, I sometimes finish some of my sessions, and when Erin and I talked about the other day about this, we talk about, I've done this with US audiences as well, and just saying, well, you're treasurers, you're going, oh yeah, how do I do something 1% better? Or balance sheet, or whatever. No, it's about you as people. So what I did a couple of times is I gave them these coffee vouchers. And I said, go and do this once on a Friday. Just take 10, 15 minutes for yourself and just think about what I could do for me or my team every week. And actually the feedback I was getting from people is incredible because, okay, they weren't getting 37 times the thing, but because they were doing it once a week. But actually they were saying 52 times iterations was amazing and actually making a difference. Some of them were doing a health thing, some of them they were getting off the bus a bit earlier. So they're all different things and the variety of it. So maybe just have a think about that. We'll talk about that more over drinks. I have one less drink tonight, or one more, I know. But we're going to come back to Paul. Paul, maybe pick up a couple of yours. Maybe you can see them at the back. That's it. Communication, downwards, upwards, understand your business, embrace change, engagement, mentor.
If you get an opportunity, work abroad.
If I look at the Irish Treasury market, thirdly compared to what I've seen, I've worked in the States, Singapore and everything in the trade, but probably a little bit behind where other countries are. I think seeing new initiatives, new ways of working, new mechanisms of working, and working the things, Katrina is the most important. And also, it doesn't mean that's a key client either. You have to have the team. Change, pursuit. Again, don't be afraid to embrace standards. And we in Treasury have to be the best. We have to bring the best out of the team. We have to have that goal. We have to have that burning desire. It's not for everybody. And if it doesn't work for some of your team, the way Treasury is going, and as I said in my thing I said previously, efficiency, process, technology, full take on.
Emma, for you.
For me, I suppose the one, it sounds a little bit twee, but be trustworthy, honest, and a team player. And it's more than just your moral fibre or whatever. It's really be the person people can depend on, that they can depend on you, to be honest. I think being a team player, if you're not easy to work with, you can be all these other things and do all of these other things. But if people don't want to work with you, it's going to be very difficult to actually really make a successful career. So I think that's one. And I think knowing the value of your internal network, because we talk a lot about external networks, and external networks are great. But I think you always have to remember that you and your colleagues know more about your company, its risks, its opportunities, and that's talking to your people in your operations, getting all of that knowledge, having that communication, because sometimes I think we maybe don't value our internal network as much, and it's an extremely powerful and important network to have, because I come to things with a treasury hat, but I'm not seeing on the ground what's happening in the operations. So we need, and they will be by nature much more risk-taking, and that may not always be appropriate either. So I think it's making sure that internal network is really leveraged as well as your external networks.
Would have been easier for you guys not to come in today. It would have been easier for you straight after work to head home and everything else, but you have made the effort to do this. So actually maybe take some, number one, reflect on it. It will be on the podcast later, so do take some action from it as well. Working remotely, connections. This is one of the reasons we joke about heading off to the pub afterwards and everything else, but there's a serious part of that is actually you as treasurers are sociable people. You will gain some more from your network. That's why we're doing it as well. Maybe if you are meeting someone this evening, Chris Fulton, who is one of the treasurers, now a CFO next week, one of the days he told me about his networking tips, and I wish I could take it, but I have to give him credit for it. And what it was, now, okay, a lot of you know each other, but sometimes you'll meet someone this evening you don't know. And what he said was that he would meet someone, and this can be this event, it could be at Eurofinance, it could be at some of the other events, and he would meet someone, and he'd be getting a conversation, and then someone else would come along. They say, "Oh, sorry, can you give me a second?" And he would just take a note about that person. Just take her, daughter's going off to university, she's going to this, and he would then make a personal connection afterwards. And he's made 3 moves now, I think it is, in his career, not through me, I've had words with him, but actually he's got these through his network, because people have come to him and said, "Oh, we'd like you to come and be," now he's a CFO, now he's actually COO, I think it is, because he said, "I'm not looking for another job." He said, "No, we don't. But we know that you are the right person because your network has told us this." It does the work for you. And then, again, follow up with everyone. Guys, amazing. Thank you very much for making the effort, getting out of your remote offices. We have got the sponsorship, which does pay for the free bar. So do make the most of it. But before that, give these wonderful people a round of applause.
Thanks for tuning in to another great episode. You really enjoy it. Thank you very much. You make it worthwhile. Us recording them with these amazing treasury professionals right the way across the world, from the US, across the UK, across Europe. And there's lots more exciting guests to come and lots more live events. We love delivering this content. We get asked now, is this what you do? Do you just do content? Do you just do... No, The reason we do the content is to get to know you guys, to give you back the tips for success, if you like. But we're here to help you hire someone. If you need to recruit, call us, because at our heart, we are a Treasury recruitment company. That's how we pay the bills. That's how we pay for the podcast. And that's what we're passionate about. We hear from you at events and things. Can we also help you find your next great role? Can we help you hire? The answer is yes. That's exactly what we do. Yes, we do our Treasury Salary Survey at treasurysalary.com. That helps us know exactly how to benchmark not only your salary, but also when you're looking to hire, we know exactly what the market is paying wherever you might be, whether it's the US, UK, or Europe. We want to make sure that we are the best informed, that we're not just finger in the air. We always know. If you want to hire the best in Treasury, don't hesitate to contact us. Go onto the website, treasuryrecruitment.com, or for the US, you can contact Joe Grabowski. Europe, contact the lovely Katie. For more senior roles and roles across the UK, reach out and contact me, or drop any of us an email, joe@treasuryrecruitment.com, katie@treasuryrecruitment.com, or mike@treasuryrecruitment.com. Let us help you make the hiring process as amazingly seamless and easy as our podcasts are to listen to. Thanks for your amazing support, and looking forward to seeing you at either an event or a conference very soon, or just give me a call. Let's help you find the next role or recruit the next Treasury professional. All right, until next week. Many thanks.